Well, it was this time. Welcome, by the way, folks, to Reader's Corner, another Nothing Like a Good Book episode. Last year, I don't know if you remember, but I had the opportunity to interview Norman McCombs. He'd just written a book called A Reason to Be, and it was already getting accolades as from a book was concerned, but now I've got some interesting news to share with you. And A Reason to Be, well, it's garnered Best Sci-Fi Screenplay from the Los Angeles Film Awards. It's an original screenplay by Norman McCombs based on his historical novel, A Reason to Be. And it picked up the Best Sci-Fi Screenplay Award from the Los Angeles Film Awards. Fantastic. And the autobiographical novel creates parallel stories as the protagonist, suffering deeply from the loss of his lifelong sweetheart, starts a redemptive journey through family history, reaching back centuries from North America to the Scottish Highlands. Now, A Reason to Be also picked up official selection honours at the CFK International Film Festival and a Best Script Award from the New York Independent Cinema Awards, which is sponsored by the New York Arts and Cinema. Now, I interviewed, as I said, Norman last year, and it's a pleasure to have him back again. Hey, well done, Norman. Congratulations.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Well, my friend, I'm honored to have you back on. It's you've been nominated all over the world, and I don't think it'll be the first one as far as just the LA is concerned, but now into a screenplay. Very exciting. And you've been where I've been. You went down in February with COVID. I went down in March, but we're all survivors, fortunately. And but a bit of the old long haul still hurts, doesn't it? Even many months later, it can knock us about a little. You're getting that too?
Yeah, I'm considered a long hauler. I don't have a fever or anything, but I'm very weak, and it seems like I lost some of my lung capacity from that.
Yeah.
What they call COVID pneumonia. You probably had the same thing.
Nasty, very nasty.
Multifocal pneumonia. Being in the lower lobe of the lungs, it's spotty throughout your lung.
Well,
I haven't kicked that.
Take it easy then. Try and keep warm and do what you got to do. Don't overdo it, just do slow walks. That's how I sort of came back slowly. But thank you for coming on because I appreciate it. Look, A Reason to Be, folks, let's put it this way. The enormous success of the Outlander books and TV series, you've probably seen that. Scottish history. I mean, I'm dying to get there one day. It's part of my bucket list. It's become a popular topic, and contributions by Scottish immigrants, they've been vital to the enormous success of the United States and Canada. And those of Scottish descent are famous for a deep-seated streak of independence and intellectual vigor that has changed the world following the Battle of Culloden. In 1745. Hundreds of thousands were cleared from the Scottish Highlands and scattered to all points of the compass. Even in Australia, laddie, I can tell you, quite a few Scots. So your connections to the famed Highland clans, McCombs, Norman, they form the foundation of a journey through history, right, which is in no way small. Saved his life, representing one of those great Scottish-American success stories. I've got to ask you this. A Reason to Be, fabulous book. It is a semi-autobiographical. How much of it is truth and how much of it is fiction?
Emotionally, it's 100% nonfiction. The relatives are all my ancestry is all nonfiction. The fictional part of it has to do with the dialogue. Obviously, I didn't know what they were saying back there. I took poetic license, and so I also chose to not to write it in the first person. I changed my name, and I was going through heavy duty recovery at the time from the loss of my wife to Alzheimer's. So this just sort of spilled out of my mind, and very therapeutic for me, but it was very difficult for me to speak in the first person.
So,
by the way, when you just mentioned Culloden, when I researched the book, the clan was a clan meeting place that from hundreds of years ago in Scotland, not too far from Dundee, and I visited there. They had this huge granite stone with a plaque about the clan,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still there. So, and while I was there, I visited the site of the Battle of Culloden that, we lost. And it was invigorating to me, depressing when you hear the facts of how it actually went down.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I've been there, and I followed the trail of the Outlander, because that was I didn't even know it existed. But once I found it, I just went through the whole series, on Netflix, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
So that I decided to see if anyone was actually putting on a tour relative to that. And I found this Scottish woman that put together a group of 6 of us, and we followed the trail.
Cool.
And part of that was visiting Culloden.
And that battle, were there many involved? The one in 1745 at Culloden?
Yeah, there was a combination. The clan, the name McCombs comes from Gaelic for Thomas McComb. And so the family clan Tartan is the McCombs. The oldest son of the clan McIntosh split off in the 15th century. The Laird McIntosh was attempting to take over the lands and the family of Thomas, the oldest son, and he resisted. And that's in the book, the prologue, wherein he actually slays the Laird of the McIntosh clan, which is all documented stuff. Amazing what I found.
Yeah, when you go into a history like that,
it's fascinating. Except, Mark, we lost.
Well, what prompted you in the first place to research your ancestry?
Well, when I was very young, I'm talking about 9, 10 years old, I used to write short stories and send them into Collier's and Saturday Evening Post. And it got to a point where I had to make a decision whether I was going into the fine arts or going to science. And I chose the scientific trail, intending to go back to writing eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have the time in my life to do it, but my dear wife, Grace, of 55 years, contracted Alzheimer's. And that I gradually sold off the business I had and concentrated on trying to cure her, which didn't work. But my pride, my ego, I couldn't accept the fact that there wasn't a cure. Somewhere in the world, someone was coming up with something, and I didn't want to miss it. So I dedicated my life to that for 6.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
When I lost her, I had, as is off the case, I suffered the clinical depression.
Let me ask you this. With the wife and the situation with the Alzheimer's, okay, because it's pretty prevalent today. And my mother-in-law had it as well. Now, is this what led you to, you discovering and working on your air separation technology? I mean, this is used for a myriad of oxygen applications around the world. You've got patents all over the place. And in fact, I think it was President Obama, wasn't it, back in 2011, the East Wing of the White House receiving the National Medal of Technology from President Obama. Was that sort of looking for some sort of search to try and cure your wife?
That occurred in the middle of it. It actually was presented to me at the White House in 2013. They were 2 years behind time. So the award was for, again, 2 years late, from 2011. But that was 2013, and I was in the midst of caring for my wife. And so it was a very bittersweet occasion. It's now, retrospectively, I look back at it with pride, but it was at the time I was actually quite depressed and working hard to try and cure her, but again, it didn't work.
Very sad, very sad. What was her name, by the way, Norman? Gracie girl. My wife's dear friend lives in Long Beach. Her name is Grace. We call her Gracie girl. But here's the deal. She's still with you, Norman. She's right there. You know that, don't you? They're still with us.
Well, people only live. The only way they live is in your memory. And unfortunately, emotionally, I'm not strong when it comes to that. When I have memories, there are things that trigger my memories, and I figured a way to get out of the depths of depression, because one thing, however, Mark, is that I was born in Buffalo, New York, and it's very difficult for me to go back there. As soon as I land, I start getting knots in my stomach, and there's so many people, there are so many reminders that I don't spend much time there. That's how I wound up in Henderson, Nevada. It's a neutral point for many companies in lawsuits, and I'm hired gun for one side or the other, whatever side I pick. So that's how I landed here after going basically leading a very nomadic life for several years. I spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia because I made some oxygen systems for the Japanese and the Thais and the Vietnamese, and so they wanted me to come, and I never did. But then I took advantage of it and hit the road for 6 months. Came back to Buffalo and had to leave again. Along the way, I had
that particular product that that you've invented and so on. You've done that's a lot of good for a lot of people all around the world. I want to get back to this book here, Reason to Be. All right,
sure.
And all the awards you've just won, the screenplay, because we're going to see this either through Netflix or somewhere relatively, soon. And
from your mouth to God's ears, Mark.
Sorry, what was that again?
I said from your mouth to God's ears.
Yes.
As far as reaching the screen, it's a long process.
It is indeed.
Many books.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
But time goes quickly, and I'm going to be privileged to say, wow, there's Norman's great book show, A Reason to Be. Now, we talked about ancestry, so let me ask you this one, because I've got quite a few questions to go. What part of your ancestry actually gave you the most pride?
Well, I found out about my history not from my father, but from a fellow named Murray McCombs out of Toronto, as you know, about 90 miles north of Buffalo. Murray McCombs was a distant cousin, and he got his PhD by looking through or organizing family McCombs. And I found it looking up some patents of mine and said relatives of Timothy McCombs. And I looked it up, and here I am at the bottom of the list, the end of the clan. So that's how it started. And then I started doing more research, and it kept me busy. And it's quite, therapeutic.
Yeah. Put your mind into that. That's right. That's a good thing. So what about ancestry, as far as the most...
as far as ancestry along the way...
The most connected to. What about the one most connected to?
Well, let's start with the one that... There's a James... John Gordon McCombs that was sent to Belfast by Oliver Cromwell way back. And he had a very interesting life. He was entrepreneurial. He had a bastard child named Timothy by a maid, and his wife Jane took her in as her own, which I found very profound. That this woman would raise what turned out to be my fourth great grandfather, Timothy, under her own roof, and they left Belfast to come to the United States in, I think it was 1735, pre-Revolutionary War. He and his brother Alexander were quite successful. Alexander more so. Alexander made a lot of money out west in the fur trade. And when he came back, he became a friend of Alexander Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
And together they owned about 25% of New York State. But it was considered a land grab by the government at that time, and they had to give back. And Timothy did not have the wherewithal to keep from going to debtor's prison. Interesting stories. Then Alexander Hamilton got them out, and together, mainly my grandfather Alexander started the New York Stock Exchange. And there's on 39 Broadway, there's a building that was the McCombs Mansion. There's a plaque on it. The first time I went to see it, I stood there and said, "Oh my goodness!"
Mm.
And I sort of stood there looking up at it, hoping more people would come by, and I could point up and say, "Hey, look at that! Look at that!"
Right.
A proudful moment for me. And then his son Alexander Jr. was awarded the first Congressional Medal of Honor by during the War of 1812, moving the Brits back, Plattsburgh. So a lot of interesting stuff. So I guess those two people, maybe that, again, it was profound to me that a woman would take in the bastard child, but also I'm proud of the fact that my ancestors had something to do with the founding of this country.
Yeah.
Financially. Yeah.
Well, me too. Touching on that, I only found out recently that going way, way, way back, my family connected there, started the actual Bank of Scotland.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a touch of that. No wonder I'm tight sometimes, but there's a touch of that Scottish in me, I can assure you. Now, look, folks, you're listening to Norman McCombs, whom I'm interviewing, who has written a book called A Reason to Be, and I've read the book. It's well worth reading. You can take a lot from it. Some lessons if you're going through similar, situations in life. I recommend that you do. But it's gone on to be picked up as the best sci-fi screenplay award from the Los Angeles Film Awards. And his photo and the bio and all of this is on the particular on my site, markbishopmedia.com, where it goes to Nothing Like a Good Book, all right, which is a division of Mark Bishop Media. Now, I want to ask you this. What tips do you have, Norman, for anybody that wants to start researching their own ancestry? Is it just a matter of going to Ancestry.com or are there other ways?
Well, it's a good starting place. I happen to with me, it was circumstantial, and I had this relative, Murray McCombs, but that led me to other connections because I went to once I found out what Murray had to say, I found out that the family had settled in St. Catharines, Ontario. So I contacted the Historical Society in St. Catharines, and then led to some relatives up there, and but I did use Ancestry.com quite a bit,
right,
for details, and it's very, for me, it was therapeutic and interesting and exciting in some ways, finding out I had all these relatives around the world.
Yeah,
and I have to tell you though, I've always considered myself rather opinionated, and every Scot I ran into was very opinionated. It's easy to get into a discussion, but we're a unique lot, I think. Very proud of being Scottish. My father, he talked about being Scottish, but I thought that he had come directly through Canada to the U.S., but in fact, McCombs first set foot in North America in, I think, 1735. So
yeah,
we were not exactly directly from Scotland. There is an audio version of this on Amazon that I found a gentleman that puts on the accents very well, so people may be interested.
Yeah, I'm going to put that on the site. Actually, I've got that. I've got that actual address, the link. So I'll put that on the site for people to be able to go to.
That's fun, and it's also ebook.
Yep.
Amazon seems to be the source of choice.
Well, it's just easy, isn't it? So let's move on. Let's talk about when you met President Obama, being honored at the White House. Just share, a little of that. Just it must have been a great feeling. You must have been proud. I know you were depressed and you were going through a tough period, but you probably thought to yourself, wish my darling was here when this was happening.
Well, I had good friends that I was allowed to bring 4 people with me. And 2 of them were good friends. The other was Grace. The good friends, she's a nurse, so she was very caring for Grace during that period. It was quite confusing for the poor lady. And I also brought a 12-year-old boy along. It was like we don't have children, but he was like a grandson to me.
Right.
And I brought him along with his parents couldn't come, but we got to meet the president. And right now, this year, he's graduating from University of Buffalo engineering. I'm proud of him.
Well done.
He told Obama that, because they all met him, made a group photo, and he told President Obama that he wanted to get there on his own accord someday. So who knows? I'm proud of him. And to me, again, as I said before, I was in a haze, to a certain degree. I remember everything. I remember being all alone at the East Wing entrance. There's a curved driveway there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just stood there for a bit thinking about it. I am always to always look forward and not really live in the moment. And I made sure that I lived in that moment. And so I recollect more or less everything about it. And it was the highlight of my life. Someone like me can't get a higher award. And it was a total surprise to me, but my friends and associates nominated me, and next thing I know, I got a call while I was in Switzerland telling me about having won it. It was asking me if I was available the next day to receive a call. And it was a 6-hour difference, and of course, so while I was in Switzerland with some Swiss folks, and
right,
phone rang, and there he was, and, saying a lot of nice things to me. So I was born in poverty, and I think he found that interesting. That unusual.
Mm-hmm.
I've said I'm in the process of writing a memoir that describes my being born in a shack.
Well, you've come a long way since then, that's for sure. And, it's a real rags to riches story. And good on you.
Look back. Everyone has a story, Mark.
That's right. And
everyone
indeed.
has a story.
In the couple of minutes that we have left, Norman, I would like to get this out. I just want to touch on the book again. What do you hope that readers will take away from A Reason to Be?
What I'd like them to take away is that if they have undergone what I went through, that they can survive. It's a book of survival. The book describes vividly me waking up. After a while, I just couldn't get out of bed anymore, and I wouldn't ask for help. So 2 things. One is that you can survive, but I did not ask for help. And that's what I strongly encourage people to do. Alzheimer's Association is well equipped to help you.
Mm-hmm.
I was too proudful. I didn't want to admit it. It wasn't until I finally got an MRI that they could see the brain shrink, certain area in the brain that shrinks.
Yep.
Up to that point, I was very, very hopeful that I could find something. But again, readers, I'd like them to take away from it that they will survive. They keep at it. Antidepressants and things don't work. Not for me anyway. But what does help is sharing with others that are experiencing the same thing. And I did that after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
It kept me going. But while it's happening, it keep you out of the depths of despair. It's an unholy disease. All diseases are, but that one in particular.
Very difficult.
Brings everybody down with it.
You've given some great words of wisdom, Norman, for those, whose loved ones are living with Alzheimer's. The sad thing about all these diseases, cancer, Alzheimer's, and on it goes. At our age now, and give us another 20, 30 years, God willing, or whatever, but you know what? They probably won't exist in time to come. But that wasn't to be in this lifetime around. Ladies and gentlemen, Norman McCombs is the author. The book, it's called A Reason to Be. A great autobiography and, an autobiographical novel. A great story, but that's, going to be a great movie in time. It has won the Best Sci-Fi Screenplay Award from the Los Angeles Film Awards, plus many other things around the world. But that's a big one because it's likely where a series will come from or the miniseries or maybe just the movie, whatever. But I'm looking forward to it. And you hang in there, man. I mean, COVID's not easy, I know, and you're coming back. And I suffer a little long haul every now and again, and you're going through that right now. So there's another battle, and you're winning that one too, Norman. It is not just a book in survival, but also in real life. And it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you again.
Yeah, for me as well, Mark. Happy holidays to you.
Take care, my friend.
And your audience.
Goodbye now.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.